Hey, what the hell happened to your face? It looks a little weird. You're a weirdo. I'm kidding. We're all weirdos. I'm the biggest weirdo of them all. Hey, it's Nick Digilio. Thanks for checking out my YouTube channel. I provide videos almost daily, and I like to keep these videos going, which means you should help me out at my Patreon page, patreon.com/NickDShow. Pick a tier, donate, helps me keep the videos going, and you get bonus material if you donate and become a patron. Bonus material, videos, all kinds of other cool bonuses that'll be coming up, plus inside radio stories about what happened at WGN and much more. Pick a tier. Donate today. Help me out. Patreon.com/NickDShow. My podcast, the Nick D Podcast, is new every Tuesday and Friday, part of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network. Check out RadioMisfits.com or get it wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe today. Okay, I wanted to mention, a few months ago, I put together a list of the top 25 best performances by women in horror movies. And the reason why I just pulled this list out is because the other night I watched, once again, The Nighthouse, which is a terrific horror movie from last year, one of my very favorite films of 2021, featuring Rebecca Hall, who, for my money, gave the best performance by any human being in any movie last year. Rebecca Hall in The Nighthouse. An incredibly scary movie, like really fucking scary. And horror is my favorite genre, if you know me at all. I started watching horror movies as a zygote and started seeing horror movies at a very young age. My dad took me to see The Exorcist in the theater when I was 8. So needless to say, I have been completely hooked on horror movies. I'm one of the hosts at Flashback Horror Convention, which, by the way, is happening this August 5th through the 7th, at the Hyatt Regency O'Hare, beautiful hotel. I will be back as a guest and as a host. Missed it last year, but I'm back this year, and I'm going to be doing a podcast live from there. I'm going to be doing the Nick D Show podcast live from the Flashback Horror Convention. Check out flashbackconvention.com. Flashbackweekend.com. And I will be there live, back doing the duties that I do, doing Q&As and hanging out, introductions, and I will be hosting my podcast from there. So with special guests, all kinds of really amazing horror guests. It's going to be fantastic. But anyway, I've been a horror fan my entire life, and I love the horror genre, and it doesn't get respect. Never gets respect from the Academy. Critics usually piss on them. It's a horror movie, so forget it. When in fact, I think the horror genre is not only my favorite genre, but I think it's the best genre. I think some of the greatest movies ever made fall under the umbrella of the horror genre. It's an interesting genre to explore all kinds of themes and to do really daring things and take on topics that a lot of genres don't take on. And it's also really unfortunate because great performances have been given by actors and actresses throughout the decades and decades and decades of the horror genre, and they never get the critical acclaim that they deserve. They certainly don't get Oscars, and they certainly don't get awards because the horror movie genre is the most disrespected genre. Less than action, less than comedy, less than any of the genres that don't get the respect. Horror movies are kind of like the bastard son of genres, which is bullshit because it's the best genre. The last time that a horror movie won major awards at the Academy Awards was Silence of the Lambs, and even before that, I can't remember. But the last time that a horror movie won major awards was in '91 when Silence of the Lambs won Best Picture, Director, Screenplay, Actor, and Actress. It won all the major awards. And here's the unfortunate thing: Silence of the Lambs is an offensive, morally reprehensible piece of shit. So, like all the people who bitch about horror movies, about their content and everything, suddenly, because Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins are in it, it's okay to make a movie that is as sub-level and as morally reprehensible as you could possibly get, but it's okay. I fucking hate The Silence of the Lambs. It's a horrible, offensive piece of shit, and yet it won Best Picture. And it's a horror movie. All the people out there, well, no, it's an intellectual thriller. No, fuck you, it's a horror movie. It's a horror movie. So, anyway, horror movies never get the acclaim, and especially women in horror movies. Women in horror movies do not get the acclaim that they deserve. So I put together a list some months ago of the top 25 best performances by actresses in the horror genre. And I bring this up because Rebecca Hall in The Nighthouse, which is an incredibly scary movie, ghost story, really scary, and also a really incredibly moving and sad and beautiful examination of grief and a look at how to deal with grief and how to deal with the fact that someone you love commits suicide. It is a film that deals on the most beautiful and intense levels that topic, grief, suicide, all of that stuff, through the genre of horror, through the genre of a creepy, really fucking scary ghost story. And it's a scary movie. The Nighthouse is a really scary movie. I've seen it a bunch of times, just watched it. And it still freaks me out. It still scares the shit out of me. It's a very scary movie that is anchored by one of the best performances ever by Rebecca Hall. And last year, no one gave a better performance in any genre, in any movie, than Rebecca Hall did in The Nighthouse. Nobody did. Nobody. And none of the 5 women that are nominated for Academy Awards this year, none of those performances, as good as a few of them are, none of them are nearly as good as what Rebecca Hall did in The Nighthouse. It is the best performance by a human being in any movie. And it just so happens to be a woman in a horror movie. So here are 25 other performances that I put in order of my favorite. And Rebecca Hall is like hovering over all of it. She's one of the greatest. It's one of the best performances in the history of horror films, and a great performance in general. But I have 25 others. Great performances by actresses in the horror genre that never got the acclaim that they deserve. Some were nominated for Academy Awards. A couple of them, I think one, in fact, won an Academy Award for it. But it doesn't happen very often. Very, very rarely does the horror genre get the acclaim that it deserves, and very rarely, even more rare, is the fact that women in horror movies get the kind of awards that they deserve for doing great work in horror movies. So I have the best female performances in horror movies ever. Here we go. Number 25, Florence Pugh, Midsummer. Ari Aster, fantastic filmmaker, making some of the most interesting movies. I'll mention him later on this list. But he wrote and directed Midsommar. Great movie, great horror film, also a great black comedy with great performances all the way around. Florence Pugh is fantastic in the lead. It's a terrific performance, a very intense performance, and also a very funny performance. Florence Pugh, number 25 in Midsommar. Number 24, Emily Blunt in A Quiet Place. Terrific performance. Quiet Place 2, she's good in that too. The sequel is good, not quite as good as not nearly as good as the first one. John Krasinski directed it, and Emily Blunt, who is his wife, he cast her in this incredible role, and she's got a lot of physical stuff to do, and it all has to be very, very quiet. It's a great performance. She has to give birth in a tub quietly. Right there, she deserves an award. Number 23, Anya Taylor-Joy, The Witch. Robert Eggers, the great Robert Eggers, who made The Lighthouse with Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson. Amazing. And of course, he's got a new movie coming out, and he directed The Witch, which is what I'm talking about here. But he's got a new movie coming out called The Northman. Oh, man. Big Viking movie. Forget it. It's going to rule. It's coming out next month. Can't wait. But anyway, Anya Taylor-Joy, this was like her first movie. It was The Witch. A movie that splits people right down the middle. I think it's fucking great. A lot of people a lot of people just don't get it and don't care. It's a terrifying movie. It's a great film. And Anya Taylor-Joy was her first big performance. Nobody knew who she was when it came out. Now everybody knows her because she played chess, and everybody watched it when they were in COVID. But Anya Taylor-Joy, The Witch, number 23. Number 22, one of my favorite performances by Nicole Kidman, like way up there. And it's in The Others, which is a great old-fashioned scary ghost story, much like The Nighthouse, old-fashioned scary ghost story. Great performance by Rebecca Hall. This is a great performance by Nicole Kidman, one of her best and most underrated. And she gets, Oscar nominated for this stupid-ass Lucille Ball performance. By the way, second best performance by any actress playing Lucille Ball last year. Second best. Christine Ebersol in Licorice Pizza. Better. But anyway, Nicole Kidman is fantastic in The Others, and it's a very scary movie. Here's the movie that The Others was a virtual remake of, coming in at number 21, Deborah Kerr in The Innocents. The Innocents is essentially kind of, the Innocents was the inspiration for The Others, which was the Nicole Kidman movie. So I put Deborah Kerr at number 21 on the list. Very similar, great performance. Fairuza Balk in The Craft. Come on, man. First of all, I love The Craft. I love that movie. I am a man on the verge of 57 years old, and I am like a teenage girl when I watch that movie. The Craft is one of my favorite movies of all time, one of the best horror movies ever made, and I love it. 4 teenage girls, outcasts in high school. They form a clique, they become close, and they become witches, and they spells, and all kinds of crap happens. And oh, look at this. Look at this. Yeah, how about that? Signed. By Rachel True, who was just lovely. Rachel True and Nev Campbell. They signed my Craft poster. But I picked Fairuza Balk. All 4 performances are great. Robin Tunney, Chicago's own. All 4 of the girls in The Craft are amazing, and that movie rules. But Fairuza Balk, by the way, one of my major crushes in movie history. Like, if I were to pick the female characters that I am in love with the most, Roosa Balk's character in The Craft is like in the top. My top three. See, this is kind of weird because my top three crushes in movies. I guess I have a type because the three characters that I'm most in love with in any movie that women portray. These are the female characters that I love the most, that I have crushes on. Fictional characters. Roosa Balk in The Craft, Trinity in The Matrix, Carrie-Anne Moss, and Lori Petty in Point Break. So those are my three. Those are my top three. I love those characters. I would marry any of those characters. Massive in-love crushes on those characters. Roosa Balk in The Craft, Carrie-Anne Moss in The Matrix, and Lori Petty in Point Break. Anyway, I think I have a type. I'm not sure. Number 19, you can't talk about this without Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween. It's a legendary performance, the sort of original final girl, and she hated that for a long time, but now suddenly she's embraced it, the whole thing, and now suddenly she's like, oh, I love playing Laurie Strode. She didn't for a very long time. She's doing it now because these stupid new Halloween movies make a lot of money, and suddenly she's now she's the biggest fan of Laurie Strode, where she disowned that part and the genre for, 25 years. But now she loves it. I can't diss Jamie Lee Curtis that much because she's my first major crush. I love her. She's awesome, and I love her as a human and as an actress. But the whole jumping on the Laurie Strode bandwagon the past 5 years, a little too much to take there. But she's great in the first movie. The other ones all suck. The other Halloween movies, except for Halloween 3, which doesn't really count, they all suck ass. These new ones are fucking terrible. They're terrible. And the new one, the Halloween Ends thing that comes out in October, is going to be a piece of shit. But the original Halloween, Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode, legendary. She's in at number 19. Number 18, Heather Donahue in the Blair Witch Project. Again, another divisive movie. A lot of people hate this movie. Well, you're wrong, because the Blair Witch Project is brilliant. And it took the world by storm, and it should have. At one point, the most successful independent movie ever made. And Heather Donahue is amazing in it. And the shit that those directors put those three actors through, you can see it. You can see how fucked up and stressed that those actors were making that movie. Heather Donahue is amazing, and her performance is iconic. The whole, the whole crying and all that stuff. Blair Witch Project is a great movie. It's a brilliant movie. It's a masterpiece. It's scary as shit. If you don't think so, you're wrong. And Heather Donahue is brilliant in it. Number 17, Sigourney Weaver in Alien. I pick Alien over Aliens because Aliens is an action movie, not a horror movie. Alien is a horror movie. By the way, Alien is better than Aliens. Fact. Sigourney Weaver's fantastic in another one. First big movie. Nobody really knew who she was. She played Ripley, and she's great in it. It's a great performance and a great movie. So Sigourney Weaver. Number 16 would be Bette Davis in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. Fantastic performance. Her and Joan Crawford in that movie. It's a blast to watch. It's campy. It's a camp classic. But Bette Davis is fantastic in it. Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. One of my favorite performances in one of my favorite camp movies of all time. That's number 16. Number 15, Kathy Bates in Misery. She won the Academy Award for it. Misery, I would classify that as a horror movie. And she's great in it. It's a great performance. I'm trying to remember if she was one of the, if I would have picked her to win that year. I don't think I did. I'm trying to remember. It was 1990. And I can't remember who I would have picked that year. But Kathy Bates was amazing in it. Great, scary performance. Stephen King adaptation. James Caan, great in it. Terrific movie. And she's great in it. So that's number 15. Number 14, Shelley Duvall in The Shining. She had a nervous breakdown making it. Stanley Kubrick was a total bastard and treated her like shit and screamed at her and yelled at her and made her do take after take after take and screamed to the point, there are scenes in the movie where she's shaking, she's got the knife and she's shaking and crying and, having a fit. Well, that was real. Stanley Kubrick pushed her to the point where she nearly had a nervous breakdown. Her hair started to fall out. During the making of the movie, she was traumatized by it, and it really fucked her up. Years later, she was still deeply traumatized by the kind of asshole shit that Kubrick did in the movie, that he did to her during the making of the movie. Even Jack Nicholson kind of stepped in, and Jack Nicholson's a known method kind of asshole. He stepped in and went, "Hey Stanley, why don't you step back a little bit and take it easy?" That was my Jack Nicholson. Sounded like fucking John Wayne. Anyway, but Shelley Duvall is unbelievable in The Shining. She's a great actress. Amazing in so many things. But she's incredible in The Shining. Unfortunately, she went through hell to give that performance, but the result is great. So that's number 14. Number 13, Elsa Lancaster in The Bride of Frankenstein. One of the most iconic-looking female characters in the history of horror movies. It's a smart, really brilliant role. She plays Mary Shelley at the beginning of the movie and then becomes the bride, in the last third of the film. Not a lot of dialogue. At the beginning she does, but not a lot of dialogue at the end as the bride. Iconic, wonderful, one of the great classic horror film performances of all time. Elsa Lancaster in The Bride of Frankenstein. Number 12, Piper Laurie and Carrie. Come on now. How do you not love Piper Laurie? They're all going to laugh at you. Eve was weak. Eve was weak. Say it. Eve was weak. Piper Laurie fucking rules in Carrie. And she's unbelievable. She's nominated for the Academy Award for it. One of the few times that actresses have been nominated for the genre. Carrie, one of the greatest horror movies ever made. One of the scariest movies ever made. And Piper Laurie is magnificent in Carrie. And I will be mentioning Carrie in a few more moments here. Just a few more moments. Number 11, another Oscar winner. Natalie Portman, The Black Swan. Natalie Portman, Black Swan. Black Swan's a horror movie. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. I love Darren Aronofsky. The guy can make scary-ass movies, and he makes scary fucking movies. Mother, terrifying movie. But yeah, Black Swan, horror movie. Natalie Portman won in it. It's her best performance ever. I think it's still like the top. I mean, she's a great actress and has done has given many great performances, but she's never topped Black Swan. And that's saying a lot, considering that Natalie Portman rules. But it's a scary movie, terrifying movie, fucking freaky, weird. Hey, did I just drop acid while I watched this movie? Kind of movie, because it's Darren Aronofsky. But Natalie Portman is amazing in Black Swan. She won the Academy Award for it, which, again, is unusual. Top 10, here we go. Number 10, Marilyn Burns, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. One of the greatest female performances in the history of horror. And these 10 that I have listed here, these are the upper echelon. It does not get better than this. This is the top 10 of the greatest female performances in horror film history. Marilyn Burns. Nobody screams better than Marilyn Burns. I still don't know how the fuck she kept that consistent intensity during the last 20 minutes, last half hour of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I don't know how she did it. It's an exhausting performance. It's a brilliant performance. And I met her at a couple of horror conventions over the years. Incredibly wonderful, incredibly nice. Could not have been cooler. It's an astonishing performance. Marilyn Burns, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I don't even know what to say about it. It is one of the greatest horror performances ever, and just brilliant on every single level, and exhausting and amazing. And again, the last half hour, I don't know how she did it. So anyway, that's number 10, Marilyn Burns, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Number 9, Angela Bettis, May. An incredible movie if you've not seen it. Underrated film, Lucky McGee from 2003. She was at the Flashback Weekend many years ago, Angela Bettis, and I met her and hung out with her. We became friends. And her performance in May is astounding. It's great. It's great. It was the best performance by any actress that year. She deserved an Oscar nomination. But again, horror movie, extremely low budget. Nobody saw it. May, a very weird movie, a very emo movie. I love it. Angela Bettis in May, number 9 on the greatest female performances in horror history. Number 8, Sissy Spacek in Carrie. Piper Laurie was a little bit below her. Carrie played the lead, or Sissy Spacek played the lead. She, too, got nominated for an Academy Award for it. Did not win. She's great in it. A little too old for the part, obviously, but, a little too old to play a high schooler. But aside from that, it's a beautiful performance. It's a sad performance. It's heartbreaking. It is funny. It's scary as shit. When she needs to be terrifying, she's terrifying. It's a great performance. One of the best ever. So yeah, that's number 8. Number 7 in the top performances by female actresses in horror movies, Mia Farrow, Rosemary's Baby. Again, this one was acclaimed and Oscar nominated. Roman Polanski's classic horror, scary, terrifying movie. Again, exhausting performance. Mia Farrow, in that same regard as Marilyn Burns and as Shelley Duvall. Like, you watch it and you're like, Jesus Christ, you're spent when it's over. Mia Farrow, number 7. Number 6, Linda Blair, The Exorcist. She was 12 years old when they made the movie. We all know the story. What a 12-year-old had to go through in that movie. It goes with, I really don't have to remind you what The Exorcist is. She played the possessed little girl, and what she was required to do in that movie is jaw-dropping, and how she pulled it off, and is a normal human being. Again, I met her at Flashback, perfectly nice person, was not scarred as a 12-year-old, making one of the most, disturbing films ever made, and her having to do stuff, especially with a crucifix, and some of the stuff she had to say and do. Amazing, and she's a lovely human, and it's a great performance. Number 5, Jane Levy in The Evil Dead remake from 2013. And yeah, a lot of people might say, hey, that's pretty high. You rank her above people like Linda Blair and Mia Farrow. Yes, I do. Jane Levy in The Evil Dead remake is an unbelievable performance. Unbelievable. Again, exhausting, like your Marilyn Burns and like your Shelley Duvall, and like the shit that she did in that movie. It's a great movie, by the way. Fede Alvarez's remake of Evil Dead. I was down on it, and then I saw it, and I loved it. It's a completely different take. It's a lot more hardcore horror. It's really gross and really scary and really brutal and really fucking good. Like a great movie. It stands alone on its own as an Evil Dead movie. And Jane Levy in this movie is unbelievable. She does a great job as a troubled young woman, as an addict, and then when she gets possessed, it's terrifying. So, Jane Levy, yes, I do think it's the 5th best performance by a woman in a horror movie ever. It's an astonishing performance. Number 4, Isabella Gianni, Possession. Had the pleasure of seeing that a few months ago, back on the big screen at the Music Box. A certifiably batshit crazy movie. Like a really certifiably batshit crazy movie, with everybody in it is nuts. Sam Neill, some of the best shit he's ever done in a movie, and one of the craziest performances he's ever given. And Isabella Gianni, again, I guess one of the requirements of making these movies, the horror genre, is that the women really have to really just give 1,000%, and you're even spent when you watch it, because Isabella Gianni in Possession, like all these other great performances, exhausting in what these women had to go through to do this stuff. Possession is a great, crazy fucking movie. It's not for everybody at all. It's a crazy movie, but Isabella Gianni, number 4. Number 3, Ellen Burstyn in The Exorcist. She plays the mother who goes through even more shit emotionally. It is a roller coaster ride of a performance. Ellen Burstyn, one of the greatest actresses on the planet. Speaking of Aronofsky, her performance in Requiem for a Dream is fucking amazing. And she didn't win that year, if I'm not mistaken. Julia Roberts did. But yeah, Ellen Burstyn, one of my favorite actresses ever in the world. Never not great, never not phenomenal, and she's amazing in The Exorcist. Everything that her character goes through, from top to bottom, the stuff that she has to struggle with, from what's happening to her, to the emotions that she has to grapple with. It's a fucking amazing performance, and again, an exhausting one. Number 3 is Ellen Burstyn in The Exorcist. Number 2. Essie Davis in The Babadook. Incredible performance. Again, in looking at this, the one thing that so many of these have in common is just how the work that these actresses had to go through, the shit that they did, and how exhausting it must have been for them to do this. Just what you watch it and you're just like, oh my God, I can't believe what these women are doing on the screen. And Essie Davis in The Babadook, which is one of the greatest horror movies of the past 40 years. Incredibly scary, incredibly smart. Again, a movie about grief and dealing with loss. Similar to what Rebecca Hall's character goes through in the Nighthouse. This is a rich topic, and you get a lot of really, grief and loss seem to be a connecting theme in a lot of these movies. And my number 1, again, deals with that. But Essie Davis in The Babadook, an incredible performance. Not just a horror movie performance, but a performance in general. And her work with the young kid is astonishing. The Babadook is one of the best horror movies of all time, incredibly scary, and her performance in it is amazing. And it comes in second to, number 1, the best performance by an actress in a horror movie ever is Toni Collette in Hereditary. And again, a movie about grief, about death, about dealing with it, about the secrets within a family, and then it gets really batshit crazy. Again, Ari Aster directed this movie. He directed Midsummer, and he's one of the best directors on the planet right now. Hereditary, again, absolutely terrifying. As far as modern horror movies go, we are in a renaissance period for horror. The past 10 years or so have been magnificent in terms of the output of horror movies. The genre, thanks to a lot of incredible studios like Neon and A24 and low-budget movies and great filmmakers like Robert Eggers and Ari Aster and other people who are making these movies. And movies like Hereditary, and It Follows, and The Babadook, all of these great modern horror movies, Raw and Titane. The genre is more respected now, and a lot of really amazing films are coming out. And Hereditary is the best of the lot. Hereditary is a fucking terrifying movie. It's a scary movie. Everybody in it is great. It goes off into the weirdest shit possible in the last 15 minutes. It is scary as shit. It's a terrifying movie. Truly, truly scary. Hereditary. I know a lot of people don't like it. Some people don't think it's scary. Some people think it's boring. You're wrong. I don't understand you. Learn. That's all I can say. We don't speak the same language. You're not from the same planet as a human being that would see Hereditary and be terrified of it, because it's fucking terrifying. And Toni Collette is amazing in it. It is an incredible performance. One of the best performances that any actress has ever given. And of course, she didn't get nominated. No recognition for it. Just like Rebecca Hall this year in The Nighthouse. No recognition because it's a horror movie. So those are my top 25. Let me fly down them real quick again. The best, number one, Toni Collette. The best performance in horror movie history by a woman is Toni Collette in Hereditary. Very close second, Essie Davis in The Babadook. Then Ellen Burstyn, Exorcist, Isabella Gianni, Possession. Jane Levy, Evil Dead Remake. Linda Blair, The Exorcist. Mia Farrow, Rosemary's Baby. Sissy Spacek, Carrie. Angela Bettis, May. Marilyn Burns, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Natalie Portman, The Black Swan. Piper Laurie, Carrie. Elsa Lancaster, Bride of Frankenstein. Shelley Duvall, The Shining. Kathy Bates, Misery. Betty Davis, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. Heather Donahue, Blair Witch Project. Jamie Lee Curtis, Halloween. Roosa Balk, The Craft. Deborah Kerr, The Innocents. Nicole Kidman, The Others. Anya Taylor-Joy, The Witch. Emily Blunt, A Quiet Place, and Florence Pugh, Midsummer. Those are, in my opinion, and then add to that list, near the very top, Rebecca Hall from last year's The Nighthouse. Give horror the respect it deserves. There you go. There's a quote from John Carpenter right there. That's right. They will live forever. John Carpenter. That's right. They will live forever, and they need the respect that they deserve. And the women in those horror movies deserve much more respect. Those are 25 of the best performances you'll ever see, and they just happen to be in horror movies. So anyway, The Nighthouse is out there streaming somewhere, and a lot of these movies are out there too. So respect the women who in the horror genre and give them the love they deserve. Horror movies rule.